Good evening. Welcome to the Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty FF's dedicated podcast. I'm your host, Drew. You can find me on Reddit at EAF_Marine and on Twitter at DrewDotsonNFL. With me are my co-hosts, Scott and Tyler. You can find Scott on Reddit at Stewie35, and Tyler, you can find him at Barrels. And we're closing up another combine. We have the defensive backs going tomorrow, but for the most part, it's over, except for you IDP watchers. I know I lost my thought there, but we're gonna do this week in review with a couple of quick combine thoughts. Other than that, we're gonna do a pretty in-depth review of it next week. My first thought is, holy Kevin White, 4.35, which I mean, if you watch tape of him, that wasn't too surprising. There wasn't really any 40 times that were that surprising for anybody. The running backs ran a little slower than we would have liked, but there are a couple Twitter users that are going through and saying that those 40s are probably a little slower than they should have been based on how they were timed. Melvin Gordon didn't look half bad in his receiving drills. He tracked the ball fairly well. Nothing spectacular, but he caught the ball. Nothing negative to say. I'll be interested to watch him his pro day, see if there's any more to add on to that. But you guys have anything more you want to add on the combine?
Not this week.
Yeah, I didn't watch too much. Obviously, Kevin White was pretty dang impressive. I thought Cooper looked like an old salt, looked like a pro, looked like he was not necessarily going through the motions, but he certainly wasn't being challenged by anything. He's just a tactician, man. The dude's a surgeon. Love watching him.
Yeah, he made it look fairly effortless. And people are going to be losing their minds over Kevin White's combine time, but Cooper ran 0.07 seconds slower than him. Go grab a stopwatch and try and stop at 0.07. It's good luck. Cooper is just as impressive based on his measurements. These measurements, in all honesty, shouldn't be making a difference. They should just be confirming what you see on tape. If they're out of nowhere and they come out terrible, it should cause you to go re-examine what you looked at. But when it comes down to it, you shouldn't be making your draft board based on the combine. And if y'all don't have anything else, we're going to move on to our college player discussion of the week. And we're going to start off with a guy we were just going on about a little bit, and that's Kevin White. He's a senior wide receiver out of West Virginia University. He's going to be 22 at the start of the season, which is surprisingly young for a senior. He's really only got one solid year of production. He played 2 years at JUCO, which gives a lot of people pause because they don't want to draft, the one-year wonder. But if you look at his film, I'm not really concerned about him being a one-year wonder. Tyler, I'm going to let you take the floor because I know you're almost as enamored with this guy as I am.
Yeah, I mean, this kid's got all the tools. One thing that I really noticed after, breaking down the tape a little bit more is he's the best run-blocking wide receiver I've seen out of this bunch. Now, that seems like a little thing, but that's going to put him on the field and keep him on the field. He's excellent versus the press. I love watching his release versus the press. He's got a really good footwork, good handwork, and he doesn't tip his route at all. Really impressed with his physicality. The Baylor had a kid at corner who was about 6'2", 200. And White did a really nice job against him, but this kid got physical with him, and White struggled a little bit getting some separation downfield. And he had a few contested catches where he couldn't quite bring it down, so that gave me a little bit of pause for concern. But nah, this dude's all world, man. He's a top three pick this year, and it's not even close.
Yeah. You talking about having issues with contested catches? I think that might have just been, a one-time thing. There are plenty of times where, he's got the corner right on him, and he goes up and attacks the ball. He is an absolute pro at high pointing the ball, and I think that's one of his strengths. And I love what you said about him getting off the press. That to me is one of the first things that that jumps out at you. It's more than just one aspect. It's multiple things he does that enables him to get a jump on the corner in that first and second step. There's a lot of people that, especially during the combine coverage and reading through Reddit, stuff like that, saying they're kind of surprised to see that he ran as fast as he did. It doesn't really show on tape. And I'm wondering what tape they're watching. If you watched the Oklahoma game, if you watched the Texas A&M game, if you watched the UT game, he was torching these corners. I mean, seeing him run a 4.35, I expected him to run low 4.4s. None of that was surprising. His straight line speed has been evident on film this whole time. This guy's an absolute stud, and if you have him as your number one wide receiver, then you're probably right. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, unfortunately, I gotta agree with everything you guys have been saying. I think he looked really good on tape to me. He ran a good variety of routes, something that I hadn't seen out of a prospect in a little while that I've been watching. So it was nice to see him run a bunch of different routes. He didn't run, just the three different routes all the time. Slant, curl, and go. That was nice. He ran lots of little bubble screens. He was good with the ball in his hand. He was good, making plays even if he didn't have the ball in his hand, finding those open spots in the zone defense or just beating his man in man-to-man coverage. I like that he's coming back for the ball on those shorter routes, making sure to help the QB out a little bit. He's able to work through some of those tackles. I mean, he was a really well-rounded wide receiver. It was good to watch. Somebody that I think that could make an impact on a team year one.
Absolutely, he was making some money on those comeback routes. Yeah, one thing that he really sold me on is he runs them really well. He needs to work on his footwork in them, but he drops right into them. He blocks out the corner when he does them, and that's something you really like to see. It's not something rookies and college players do as much, and that it shows more experience, which for somebody who hasn't had as much experience makes him seem extremely coachable and gives me a lot more hope for him at the NFL level.
Yeah, I mean, all those small things I feel like points to a high football IQ, someone that understands what defense is trying to do and what he needs to do to prevent that. Coming back to the ball, a simple thing like that on any sort of route, even if you're running a slant to come back as the ball is in the air, it just shows that you understand defenders are going to be trying to make a play on that ball. Everyone's trying to make a play on the ball, and for you to help your QB out by getting closer and making that pass just that little bit shorter. It shows that he's a little bit farther along than you would think at someone that's so little playing time.
Yeah, Tyler, you have anything else you want to add on?
Not really, man. I mean, I love the kid. And I like what you said about on the comeback routes, posting up the defender, walling him off, because those are first downs, man. Even a guy like Kelvin Benjamin did pretty well at it this year, and he had plenty of balls clang off his shoulder pads. So, if the windows are going to be tight, he's not going to be wide open like he was in college, but the fact that he can get physical with a defender and keep the defender from getting through him to the ball, that's just going to be money, and it's PPR gold, and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. Overall, this guy might be my 101. I debate him over Gurley. Gurley's probably a once-in-a-generation talent, but there's there's such a value with the wide receiver position right now that it's a tough debate for me. I've been arguing Cooper and White as my top wide receiver since during the season, and it hadn't really gotten any easier. Both of them have both continued to look stellar, and neither of them has really, edged themselves out in front of each other.
I
But
agree.
with that, we'll move on to our kind of our lower tiered guy, and that's Josh Robinson, who's a junior running back out of Mississippi State. He'll be 23 at the start of the season. Like Kevin White, he was only a starter for 1 year. He was at Mississippi State this whole time, but he only got to start for 1 year. He came out after, he could have stayed, but he didn't, which as a running back kind of makes sense. If you can go, go. But Tyler, I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Well, I can admit that I came in with some preconceived notions about this kid just from watching some Mississippi State games live during the season. But when I started really watching the tape on it, I came away more impressed than I thought I was going to be. The one thing that I like most about him is he wants to keep it in between the tackles. He's not looking to bounce outside. And in today's NFL, where so much is done with the one-back set out of the shotgun, it's going to be pretty important that he finds that crease inside, pick up what's there 3, 4, 5 yards. That's what's going to keep him on the field. That's what killed Sankey last year, and that's why a lot of us were so down on Sankey, was because he had a tendency to bubble constantly. And this kid's the exact opposite of that. So, like I said, I just came away a lot more impressed than I thought it would be. He's a terrible pass blocker. Just terrible. He's got this little frog leap thing that he does where he just jumps down at a guy's ankles, and sometimes he gets them and sometimes he doesn't, but more often than not he's laying on the ground. So that's going to need some work for sure, but I could see him fitting in pretty well somewhere.
Yeah, like my third note when I was watching him was piss poor pass blocker. Yeah, he's absolutely horrible at it, which might limit his time on the field, but I agree. I went in with some preconceived notions. What's up? No, I guess I don't know if I'm hearing ghosts or what, but my biggest thing with him is
Are you there? No? Sorry, my computer freaked out. I don't know if you guys are both still doing all right. My bad.
All right, Scott's having a moment. Yeah, he had some huge holes to run through at Mississippi State. And part of that's playing with Dak Prescott, who, when you have to deal with him as a threat too, it's going to open up some running lanes. But even when he had smaller holes to run through, he found them and he burst through them. He has excellent quick burst, but he has no top gear at all. And part of that comes from the fact he's got very short stride. But I like the comparison you made to me before, Tyler, that he kind of reminds you of MJD, and that's a comparison that's really stuck out to me because he's got the powerful legs. He can really drive the pile. If you watch during the Kentucky game, you see him come out of the pile, and he's got, I think it's 2 or 3 defenders on top of him, and he's still upright and just dragging them because his pad level's low enough to where he's just pushing. It's ridiculous. And we lost Scott, so Tyler, you want to expand on that a little bit more, or?
Yeah, I mean, he's really, really strong lower body. I mean, there were plenty of times where guys would just bounce off of his thighs. They just hit him, and they just never even had a chance. The only thing I'd like to see more of this kid, because the two tapes we had on Draft Breakdown were versus LSU and Kentucky, and he just shredded both of those teams. Just put up a big number on both of them. I'd kind of like to see a game where he struggles a little bit more. where he's met at the line of scrimmage more often, because both of those games the holes were just gaping wide. He hit them and he's gone. But like I said, once he gets to 15 yards, he's already at his top speed. He's not running away from anybody. But
Yeah,
I like the kid pretty good. I think he's ultimately gonna fall in the late second, early third round, somewhere in there.
yeah. I'm not comfortable with him that high. He's probably closer to late third, early fourth for me. But I agree with the top speed idea. You see him break off one long play against Kentucky, and he had three defenders closing in on him, and he knew it. He wasn't going to beat him, so instead of just letting them tackle him, he's intelligent. And he makes a cut behind one of them, makes it in for the touchdown. He's a very intelligent runner like that. And I think it's part of the reason why he doesn't bounce off the outside is he knows he doesn't have the speed to beat him to the outside, so he keeps the inside where he knows he has his advantage. And Scott, if you're alive, I want to hear your thoughts on him.
Yeah, I'm not sure everything you guys said. I think I lost you guys for a minute there or two. But I really like the way he would keep his feet moving. He's able to actually break tackles. I believe the last running back we talked about, Melvin Gordon, he was really good at bouncing off tackles, keeping guys from hitting them and not bringing them down right away. This guy broke tackles, legitimately ran through guys that had him wrapped at the legs, wrapped on the waist, all kinds of different tackles. There's a play against Kentucky where he bounced off like 4 or 5. Wait, no, I think they ended up counting. It was like 6 or 7 tackles he broke. And he'd already gained like 4 yards, bounced back, and ran around the whole thing for another 8 or 9 on the other side. Kids got heart for sure. I really like that. I agree. I heard you guys talking about the speed. The top end's not quite there. Routinely getting caught on long runs, so that's a little bit rough. But as long as you're not expecting that from him, then he's doing everything you want. I think that the blocking is definitely hit or miss. You guys both called it piss poor. I think I saw a play where they were complimenting him on his blocking because he dove at the feet of one guy, and that guy tripped backwards and knocked over another guy. So like, oh look, he blocked 2 guys as the quarterback went running by. And so I mean, he gets credit sometimes for more than he does, but yeah, I think every time was that sprawl out. He was always face down on the ground. Whether he got the block or not is one thing, but no doubt he was always facing the ground afterwards. So definitely could use some work there. But I thought he was more impressive than I was expecting. I thought he fit through some smaller holes than I would think. He looked more for the cutback versus the bounce outside, like you guys were talking about Bishop Sankey doing a lot. So, I mean, I think there was a lot to like. I think he's an early to mid third round pick. I definitely am more impressed than I thought I would be with him. And somebody I'll be keeping an eye out for sure.
Now, when you guys are talking about pick values, are you talking about rookie picks or NFL draft picks?
Rookie.
Yeah, same for me. I'm discussing like if we're running a rookie draft.
Okay, I've been watching too much combine. I'm in NFL draft mode. Yeah, I'm probably with probably right around y'all. He's early third for me too. And what you said about him diving at their feet. When you're a running back, you can't even execute a cut block. That's not a good sign. Like
Nope.
that, those are supposed to be your bread and butter. Like if you can't stand up and block somebody, that's kind of understandable. But if you can't even cut block somebody, you got a long way to go. But with that, I think we'll finish out our college player discussion for the week, and we'll do our first rookie spotlight in, I don't know, 2 months. And we're going to do this because this is a segment I've been waiting to do since I was still on the show with Dave, and I've been waiting for us to have 3 guys on the show at the same time, so it's not just me and another guy going back and forth. I wanted to do a redraft of the 2014 rookie class. We're going to do 2 rounds, which I know doesn't speak to the depth of this class, but I don't want us to be here for 2 hours just circle jerking about how great this class was, because it was so great. So great. But let's kick it off. I'm going to take the 101, and I don't think there's any question at this point. It's Odell Beckham Jr. He's the best, and I love him, and he's my best friend forever. Go LSU. Uh, Scott, you got the 102. I feel like I said all I need to say.
I think that was a wonderful speech, and OBJ would be very excited to hear it. Uh, 102, I think it's close for me personally. I'm gonna go with Mike Evans. I think he showed a little bit more than the other people that I would have right there at the 2 or 3 spot. So I'm gonna go Mike Evans.
Well, I'll fill the status quo here. Sammy Watkins is the 3. I mean, it's a no-brainer, the top 3 here. Just the fact that he can come in at 3 blows my mind. You know, this guy's worth 2 or 3 first-rounders today, and he's the 3rd best wideout in this class, so it's nuts.
Yeah. And I'm going to continue my shenanigans, and I'm going to take Brandon Cooks at 104, just like I would have in the draft a year and some change ago. I still love the guy. He was on pace for 1,000 yards as a rookie before he got injured. Drew Brees has never had this quality of a wide receiver to throw to, so all the thoughts of, New Orleans spreads it around doesn't really apply because he hasn't had this somebody that's good to throw to except for Graham. And look at all the targets Graham got. So we'll pass it to you, Scott. 105.
All right. 105, in my opinion, another close call for me, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with the wide receivers here. I'm going to go Jordan Matthews. I thought he looked really good. I think that he's got a nice little role carved out for himself there in Philly. If Macklin doesn't return, which I assume he will, I think he could even do a lot more than what he did last year. But regardless of what Macklin does, I think Matthews has quite a bit of value there in Philly.
Yeah, so I guess I'm at 6. This is where it starts to get a little bit muddy for me, but I like Allen Robinson at 6. I think Allen Robinson profiles well as an NFL one, and I'm not entirely convinced he's not going to be a fantasy wide receiver one. I think the potential's there. He was hanging some really nice numbers before the injury. He was even redraft relevant, which is pretty cool. So I like A-Rob at 6.
Yeah, I would have taken him at 6 too, and it gets real tight for me here. It's real hard for me not to go wide receiver here, but I think we have to go Jeremy Hill here. He put up studly numbers. He's arguably the number 3 dynasty running back right now until Todd Gurley comes out, and to think that he wasn't even a top 3 running back in this draft class just speaks to how deep this class was at every position. And I'm not that worried about him splitting time with Gio. I think there's plenty of work to go around for both of them. And pass it to Scott.
Yeah, I like that pick. I think it was a good pick. He was someone I was considering there at 5 actually, which might seem a little bit soon to some people, but good running back, good young running back is definitely something you always want to try and jump on, just like a wide receiver, though. And unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to go right back to the wide receivers here. Somebody that I was getting late first round anyways. I'm going to go with Kelvin Benjamin. I think that he was underrated, in my opinion, coming out of the draft a little bit. I think people were thinking he was just a product of playing weak opponents in high school, in college there. So, but I think he showed that he's got a little bit more than what people thought. I like him a lot, and that's what I'm taking here at the 9th, 8th? What am I at? 8th? Sounds right.
8, yeah.
All right, so at 9, I'm going to take a guy. I'm going to go with Carlos Hyde at 9. I think I'd probably take him over Hill even. Yeah, Hill's proven what he's done, but I don't know if Hyde wasn't in Hill's situation, he wouldn't have done just as well or better. I liked Hyde a little bit better coming out last year, so nothing for me to have tumbled him down the ranks at all. So excellent value at 9th overall. That's unreal.
Yeah, honestly, Hyde's been higher in my ranks for forever and a day. And at this point, I was purely ranking production over what we haven't seen yet. I think Hill or Hyde does have the higher ceiling, and I strongly considered Hyde where I was. I don't think you can go wrong either way, honestly. And back at my pick at 110, I think is it one? Yeah, it's 110. Uh, I think this is a great spot to grab Devontae Adams.
Yeah. Oh man. I've been
I
waiting
love
Can't stop.
all aboard the Devontae Adams train. I'm the conductor. Love me
Oh
some
man.
Devontae Adams. I took him. I think I took him at 105 in one draft this year. All about some Devontae Adams. I don't care if Cobb's there. I don't care. Give me some Devontae Adams. Yes, sir.
All right. I think that brings me up 111, huh? So this is where I think it really depends on how you felt about each player throughout that season. Decide where you want to pick the next guys. I'm personally high on Dante Moncrief, and I think I'm going to go with him here at the 11th spot, a bit higher than I would have had to take him if I was going in the draft preseason, but I think he's got a great situation in Indianapolis that he's going to be coming into here within this next year or the year after that. So I just, Andrew Luck, Dante Moncrief, two young guys looking to grow together. I think that could be a really good combo for many years to come.
Yeah, I like the Moncrief pick there. That's where I would have gone there. 12th overall is going to be a guy who shot up the charts. Is Jarvis Landry for me. I actually had him. I had him a peg below Moncrief, but man, the dude caught 85 passes. I mean, knocked me over with a feather. I would have never thought that in a million years, and I would have never even thought that after like week 15, unless I go and look at the numbers. So, Jarvis Landry, crazy productive as a rookie.
Dude, somebody told me at the end of the season he caught that many passes, and I'm like, no way. I had to go look it up because I did not believe them. And I dig it. Would have been my pick right there. We're gonna go to my number 3 running back from this class pre-draft, and that's Trey Mason. I don't get all the hate for the St. Louis running back situation. I just don't. Jeff Fisher has not had a problem sticking with one running back in the past. He just had to wait to find another good one. I feel like he let Eddie George have the job for a good long while. I feel like he let Steven Jackson have the job too when he was there. I'm not too worried about it. He's a stud, and he's going to light up the board next year.
Yeah, Trey Mason, I think that was a good pick. I think a lot of people were surprised to see Zach Stacy there and gone so quick, and that's what kind of keeps him apprehensive about it. But I agree. I think that Fisher was never completely satisfied with what he was giving him, so he was still looking for that back to call his every down back or his 3 down back, whatever you want to say it. I'm going to go with somebody that fell a little bit, but I think here in the second round, pick 2 is still pretty good value. I'm going to go with Eric Ebron. He's got, lots of question marks, didn't get a lot of play time, didn't look great. He had quite a few drops into the play time he did get. But, as a person that has a couple teams that needs a tight end still, I think that it's a good spot to get him. Second round, you've already probably picked up one guy that you really like at either running back or wide receiver, especially in last year's draft class. So Ebron's a good ticket to have, and usually it takes tight ends around 3 years to develop anyway. So I'm taking him there, 202.
I like Ebron there. 203 for me is Isaiah Crowell. The situation's a little bit muddy there in Cleveland, but at least in my eyes, he's infinitely more talented than Terrence West. It was a bit odd to see the DNPs last year for either West or Crowell, so it makes me a little bit nervous, but I got no problem taking him right here at 203.
If you didn't, he would have been my pick at 204, so I dig it. I think our next guy's fallen far enough, and I'm going to go with Martavis Bryant, who I was not into at all going into the season, and I'm still not entirely sold. I think as it stands, he's kind of relying on the big play in terms of fantasy value, but if he develops his route tree more and he develops more as a wide receiver, I think he can be a very big beneficiary of the offense in Pittsburgh.
I love it. I love it because I know that you did not like Martavis Bryant, so I am surprised to see you draft him, and I love it. I was one person that was a little bit into Martavis before the draft. Wasn't super excited about him, but I thought he had a little bit more than what people were giving him. But after probably 7 weeks or so, and he started to get a little bit of play time, I started to fall in love with this kid. So I definitely would have taken him if you didn't there. Love the pick. I am going to go to wide receiver as well, actually, and grab somebody that I think has fallen a little bit here. He's gone way up since the pre-draft or preseason draft there, and that's John Brown out of Arizona. I love what Bruce Arians has been doing with him, and I got faith that he can make a little TY number 2, basically, out of John Brown. So that's where I'll go with this pick. 204, I believe, is what I'm at here, or 205. Yes, 05.
All right, so 206, crucify me. I'm going to take Bishop Sankey. He should be the starter in Tennessee. Just give me some volume there. The kid's a hard worker. He's a good kid. He was a high character guy. I'd bet $1 to a dime that he's going to bust his ass this offseason and try to get himself more integrated in the offense. I kind of think he's got a shot at, 50-plus catches, 12, 1,500 yards. Maybe. I'm going to take him here. Shoot me.
Okay.
All right, Scott, you hold one arm, I'll nail the hand to the cross.
I'm getting aimed.
All right, I'm glad you took him because I can get the guy who I was considering at 204 here at 207, and that's Austin Seferian-Jenkins. This was my number 1 tight end last year, and he's still my number 1 tight end for the class. He's creeping his way into my top 5 tight ends overall. He showed plenty as a rookie tight end. I didn't expect him to break out. It's a position that takes a little longer to develop. If they get Jameis Winston there, I can see his production skyrocketing. I'd love to get him mid-second round. That'd be some killer value. I'll pass to you, Scott.
All right. So that was what, 207 is what you were just at? Or what am I doing here? 208?
Yes, sir.
All right. Getting pretty late in this. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with the first quarterback off the board here. Once again, just like the tight end, in my opinion, not a super sexy pick because it's not a position that's giving you great production very quickly. But I'm going to go with Blake Bortles. I think that he still has shown the most promise to be one of those typical pocket passing tight ends. Tight ends. I'm really good with words today. Pocket passing quarterbacks, and I think that he can really make a good play. And I think that Jacksonville is going to stick with him at least for a few more years, and so I'm willing to take that chance along with them and give him a shot over maybe someone like Johnny Manziel. Go ahead and toss that to you, Tyler.
Yeah, I like Bortles there. Bortles is my number 1 QB out of this class. Of course, that's not saying just a lot, but I think he's got the tools. And now I get to take my number 1 tight end as Jace Amaro. I had Jace number 1 going into last season, and I don't see any reason for me to have changed that. ASJ looked good. Ebron looked good when they played. So did Jace. So, I mean, the dude is a monster. I mean, he is just absolutely huge. My wife's a Texas Tech grad, so, of course, I got to watch him for 4 years, soaking up, a ton of targets in the spread offense. So I think he has the potential to be a pretty nice volume tight end.
Yep, he would have been my pick there, and Bortles would have been my number 3 QB after this season. I was fairly impressed with some other QBs, but my pick here is going to be a running back who's I feel like there's a pretty huge tier drop in terms of skill position players after this guy, and that's going to be Jerick McKinnon, who I hold a special position in my heart for because I traded him straight up for some Odell Beckham Jr. this past season. But I think he definitely has a chance to hold on the starting job in Minnesota if Adrian Peterson leaves, and I think he can do a great job with it. He's shown a lot of athletic upside, and I'm all about him. That'll be my last pick in this here mock draft.
All right. Like the pick, but someone I have just a little bit above McKinnon personally, mostly for his pass catching ability, which I haven't seen a whole lot of out of McKinnon. Maybe I just missed those plays. But I'm going to go with Charles Sims. I think there's still a lot of question marks out there in Tampa Bay, and I just really like what Charles Sims is doing. He's got a lot of athleticism. I think that he's a smart player, and he can catch that ball. So in all my PPR leagues, I'm grabbing Charles Sims.
All right, so I guess for the last pick, I'm going to take Cody Latimer.
Broncos.
There you go. There you go. I mean, Welker's one knock on the head away from being brain damaged for life. Emmanuel Sanders is, in my opinion, not the answer. I think Latimer can come on and do pretty well next year. And there's a reason why we had him ranked higher than Jarvis Landry, Martavis Bryant. You know, a lot of these guys going into last season, it wasn't an accident. Just the fact that he didn't get on the field is probably more of a Peyton Manning thing than anything. If you can't figure out what Peyton's doing, he's not going to put you out there. He's not going to get you the ball. So I think this is an excellent buy low time on Cody Latimer. I mean, like a really good time to go get him for almost nothing.
I'm all about it, and John Fox has been notorious for not starting rookies either, so I think it was just one of those situations where even if he was ready, he probably wasn't going to see the field. And it's crazy that we're at the end of the second round, and there's still some solid grabs out on the board. My top two QBs, Derek Carr and Teddy Bridgewater, still sitting out there. Terrence West, who as a backup is still a solid option. There's Devonta Freeman for all of you who want to buy a running back who doesn't have any value and is worthless.
Oh my God, that was a
And
low
you could still
blow.
get Marquise Lee too, Drew. You could get Freeman and Lee in the third
You know what?
round. Just think of the possibilities.
I would rather have Marquise Lee 8 days out of the week than own Devonta Freeman.
Johnny Manziel is still on the board, guys. Don't forget about Johnny Football.
I honestly, the guys left, I think the guy who gets the least respect is Kadeem Carey. You know, he had a poor combine, and people just dropped him off their board completely. But this guy was kind of a stellar running back in college, and then he gets stuck behind Matt Forte. He has a crappy combine, and people are like, "Who the hell's Kadeem Carey?" You know, Forte could retire in 2 years. Kadeem Carey could have a chance at having the starting job, and Kadeem Carey, you could get him for probably nothing in half your leagues. You know, I like Josh Huff as another. Josh Huff and Jeff Janis are two, other high value guys that are still just sitting out there. This draft was so ridiculously deep; it's not even funny.
Yeah, I mean,
it's funny.
I still even like Paul Richardson still out there. I mean, I know he's got a little bit overhyped throughout the season, but I still think he's a player that you'd want. I mean, in a third round of a rookie draft, you'd be happy to get a player like Paul Richardson, I think.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's still solid guys throughout. There's, Lorenzo Taliaferro, there's Zach Mettenberger, there's Jimmy Garoppolo for, your two QB leagues where you're going to stash him and hold him. There's Albert Wilson from Kansas City who looks like could have a legit shot at the number one job next year over Dwayne Bowe, who's getting old. I mean, just such a great class.
We got the waiver wire wonder, Alan Hearns, too. It just came out of nowhere.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a name that completely slipped my mind. I would pick Hearns to take the job over Lee for the number 2 if Justin Blackman doesn't show back up.
Yeah.
I like Hearns a decent amount.
All right. So I think we went ahead and gone on about this rookie class a little bit too much, maybe, but we're all right. So we'll go ahead and go on to the submitted questions. First one from S. Woodman Roxu. I don't know, maybe something like that. He asks, value of Calvin Johnson. It's honestly killing me. He's so exceptional when he's healthy. The issue is, if these injuries are going to nag him, he's still only 29 and should play well for another 3 to 4 years. I just want to know what to do with him. Go ahead, Drew. Let's hear what you have to say about that. What do you think, Calvin Johnson?
I think that expecting 3 to 4 years out of him is entirely too optimistic. The guy's gonna be 30 before the start of the season. I love Calvin Johnson as much as the next guy, but I'm not betting on him being the exception to the rule. I'm going to count on him degrading at 31, 32, him barely being a fantasy starter, and him following the Andre Johnson route, which means he's going to plummet in value after this year. So if I can get off the Calvin Johnson train, I'm doing it now. If I can get the 104 for Calvin Johnson, I'm doing it. And I'm going to get a lot of hate for that because unless you're absolutely making a run for the championship this year, sell him. If you can trade him for anything close to a wide receiver 1 straight up, sell him. Because if the difference between you making the championship is Calvin and the 3 points per game you'd get from the high-end wide receiver 2 that you're getting, then you weren't going to win the championship anyways.
So, quick question for you here, Drew. We just did a mock draft last week. What would your lowest draft pick that you would take for Calvin Johnson straight up right now?
Lowest point in the startup?
Not in a startup, I'm sorry. In a rookie draft. Lowest rookie draft pick that you would take for Calvin Johnson.
Oh, that 106, 107.
Okay, just for reference for whoever's listening out there, we picked Devin Funchess at 106 and Yeldon at 107. So if anyone wants to try and figure out where they're having those guys compared to the rest of their actual veterans, there's a little reference for you. Tyler, what do you think? Calvin Johnson's value?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Drew, and I'm not the guy that let's talk, trade talks, that I take my roster into consideration necessarily. It's just so tough with Calvin. If I own him, I am almost definitely holding him, because if I own him right now, it's because I've been competing, or I would have sold him 2 years ago. So would I be really hip for trading him for the 106 straight up? No. I think, like Drew said, I'd take the 104. I'd take Jalen Strong over Calvin pretty easily, I think, in most situations, unless I've got a team that I'm trying to win some money next year, in which case I'm holding him because you're not going to get proper value for Calvin. And depending on who you talk to, they still, proper value is still 3 first-rounders or equivalent, and I wouldn't pay that. I wouldn't expect anybody to pay that. So it's all over the map. It's super tough. Calvin's really a polarizing figure right now, and you could talk to 20 different people and get 20 different opinions on what they would do with him.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think that, unfortunately, we're all going to have the same opinion on this one. If you're competing this year, yeah, hold on to him. I don't think there's much else that you can get that's going to do you better for this continual, this season or next season. If you're still, depending on how large your window is, then Calvin's going to be able to do for you this season. That being said, I mean, if you're on a rebuilding team, I agree with Tyler that maybe you should have got rid of him maybe a year or 2 ago. I mean, his value has been dropping. When I started Dynasty 2 to 3 years ago, first pick, no doubt, it doesn't matter what you say, was Calvin Johnson. It then went to A.J. Green for a year, and now it's been more muddied. I mean, you got Des Bryant, Julio Jones, all those guys are all in there, which makes sense. But that's just to show how far or how quickly a player's value can drop. I mean, he was the consensus #1 in all Dynasty drafts 3 years, 4 years ago. Everybody was picking Calvin Johnson. It wasn't a question. It wasn't, who are you picking with the 101? It was, so who are you going to get at the 102 because Calvin Johnson's going to be gone already. So, I mean, I think this is something where, you definitely have to see where your situation is as far as your roster, because Calvin Johnson should be there for one reason. He should be there so you can win that championship and push your team over that next level. So I think if you're not doing that, he can be sold. I agree, right around the 105, 104 range in a rookie draft pick for me personally, or a low wide receiver one with high upside. I'd also take.
Yeah, I think a perfect example of that high level startup wide receiver whose value has just plummeted with age is look at Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, he was the cream of the crop, 3-4 years ago, and now if you'd be lucky getting a third for him. That's going to be Calvin in a couple of years, and trust me, this is what our 16th episode. I would love nothing more than for this opinion to be wrong. Out of any opinion I've given on this show, I would love to watch Calvin beast it every game for the next 5 years and prove me so wrong because he's so much fun to watch. But I'm not betting the future of my dynasty team on him being the exception to the rule. If I'm selling him, I think the smarter move is to move him in a package instead of trying to move him individually for singular value. You're probably going to get more value if you move him as part of a package to spruce up, what you're moving with him.
I love it. I completely agree. So I guess we could. No, I think we answered all of that question, actually. The extra little piece was also if you could provide examples of good trades versus reaches for Megatron. So I guess real quick, Drew or Tyler, either you guys have a reach that you think is too much to give up to get Megatron, or too little to get back for Megatron?
Yeah, I think if you're getting probably the 108 or lower for Megatron. Honestly, if you're getting the 106 or lower for Megatron, don't sell him. That's where his value falls for me. But if I have him, I'm not giving him up for that. I'm just going to ride him into the sunset, or I'm going to find the guy who will give him to me for more. But I mean, legitimately, if that's where he would fall. The players that I could get at the 106, I would rather have over Calvin probably.
Tyler, anybody you think's a reach, or a position you think is a reach in order to get Calvin?
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of those deals. Depends on who you're talking to. There's probably one guy in every league that you're in that will pay the 102 or 103 for Calvin. I was actually kind of banging around the idea of grabbing him in a league this morning, and I go to look at my roster and I'm like, what would I give for Calvin? And like I told my trade partner, I'm not going to give you what he's worth, dude. Like, I'm not even going to trade Keenan Allen straight up for him. I'm not going to package picks. I'm not going to do anything like that. So it's just like, if you want to send him to me for peanuts, cool, I'll take him. But I'm just not going to pay what he's worth. So it's just too tough to put a finger on him right now.
So for anybody that didn't get this, Tyler will trade Calvin Johnson. He'll take him from you, and he will give you Devontae Freeman if you want. He doesn't mind.
I would do that deal in a vacuum.
I don't even have to be in a vacuum. I will make that on a boat, in a moat, in a box with a fox. That's terrible. I think we can go ahead and move on to our next question. It comes from Yukon Cornelius, and it says, he's got doo-doo for tight end. He's got Heath Miller, Dennis Pitta, and Garrett Graham. So, straight up doo-doo. I've got some pieces that I could trade and wondering who the top tier, maybe 6 to 8 dynasty tight ends are. I think we can all agree the top 1 and 2 are Gronk and Graham. So I think it's going to kind of vary between us who the next 3 to 8 are. And Scott, I'll let you take the con on this.
All right. Well, my big thing with this question is I'm not giving up a lot for a tight end that's not named Gronk or Graham. I'm just not going to do it. I don't care if I have the worst 5 tight ends, the worst 100 tight ends, and I have 2 other people on my roster. If I think I have the third and the fourth tight end, and I maybe want another one, it doesn't matter. I'm not giving up pretty much any of my big pieces for anybody besides Gronk or Graham. I think that there's a handful of good tight ends in that area, but they all have big question marks. So it's really a frustrating thing to try and do to try and grab somebody in that 6 to 8 range of value for tight end. I think if I'm going for a tight end right now, I'm grabbing one of the rookies. I like all 3 of them that we drafted in that redraft that we just did. So Ebron, ASJ, or Jason Morrow. I think they're all worth a pick. I think they're all worth more than a lot of the tight ends that are already established out there, besides Gronk and Graham. So for me, I think that either you stick with your old guys that you consider straight doo-doo, which I would have to agree with for the most part, and try and wait on a rookie, or see if you can go out and get an ASJ or a Jason Morrow. There's a lot of guys that are looking for people that are going to produce now, and they're not waiting for those tight ends to come around in 2 to 3 years. So I'm hopping on that train early rather than trying to get on a guy like, I don't know, Charles Clay, who people seem to be up and down on as the weeks go by. I'd just rather have someone that I think has higher value in the future rather than someone that I think might have some sort of value right now. Because tight end, I think tier 1 is really high, and everybody underneath that's got quite a bit of a drop off.
All right. I tend to agree with you. But I do think there are tight ends you can get at a discount that are going to be in the top tier. And honestly, if you look at Tyler Eifert's ADP, he wasn't even a top 12 tight end in terms of ADP for DLF's ADP, and he's my number 4. So I'd go out and pay whatever for him. ASJ, another guy. He's fighting his way into my top 5. Greg Olson. Greg Olson is consistently right up there. I bet you could pay not hardly crap to get him. He's a little bit older. I think he's 29. Another guy you can probably pay just a little bit to get, and he's going to give you solid numbers. I'm not all about overpaying to go get it, because the difference makers are Gronk and Graham, and people are going to want you to pay for Julius Thomas and Travis Kelce, and I'm not doing it. I'm not. They're not worth the difference I'm paying between them and Eifert and Ertz and ASJ and Amaro. It's just not worth the difference. I'd rather go scrounging. That whole lower tier from 6 to 8, from 6 to 12 in terms of ADP, I would rather have them for what they cost than 3 to 6 for what they cost. Tyler?
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I can certainly sympathize with Mr. Cornelius. I have some teams that are just awful at tight end. Obviously, it's Gronk, Graham. For me, it's Kelce, then Julius, and then what's the deal with tight ends? So takes them 3 years to peak, then they peak, and then they drop off really quick, right? So we've got several guys that are about to enter that window, and a guy that I have loved since college is Zach Ertz. I've got Zach Ertz at a firm 5. Then we got, Tyler Eifert. We got Jordan Reed, Captain Concussion. But if he could stay healthy, Jordan Reed's proven he's, pretty dynamic. And then there's the Kyle Rudolph, who's been teasing us for as long as I can remember. But I'm of the same frame of mind as you guys at tight end. If I don't invest the capital in Gronk or Graham, which I'm usually not going to, just give me whatever. I'll just fill it in with whatever's there and throw some darts and hope something lands.
Yeah. And I think we left out somebody big who's got the same concussion issues as Jordan Reed, and that's Jordan Cameron. this guy was the number 4 tight end this past year, or like in the off season, and the concussions give a lot of people pause, but I don't think anybody's doubting the talent. He can go somewhere. He can go to Denver. He can go to Atlanta. He can go somewhere, and his talent could explode if he's playing with a consistent QB. And you can get him for cheap. So why not?
Totally agree. I love it. It's just tight end is that position where, like we've said a couple times already, you got those top 2 guys in Gronk and Graham, and then everything else. I mean, they're going to help you, but they're not the same thing in any sense of the word. I mean, you're not grabbing the 3rd best tight end, regardless if you have Travis Kelce, Jordan Cameron, or Julius Thomas. I think those are a couple of the guys that people might have at the 3 spot there. I don't think any of those guys you should be paying anywhere close to what you're paying to get Gronk or Graham. And if you are, I don't think you're getting what you want out of them. So I think that it's a hard position to do, and I'm in Tyler's same position where I got a handful of teams that are just terrible in the tight end position, but rather than go out and I'm sitting back with 2 out of the 3 rookies on all of those teams pretty much, and I'm just waiting for someone to have a great season and show me that they're going to be the next guy. So I think all of us would agree in saying don't overpay for anybody besides Gronk or Graham if you're going in the tight end position.
Yeah, and I feel on not having productive tight ends, except mine look real sexy, but when it comes to points, not sexy. Like last year, I drafted a bunch of ASJ, thinking I could let him sit on the bench and develop, and my starter will be Ladarius Green because he's going to break out, and I can give ASJ some time to develop. But no. So if you want to grab a sleeper and you want to just roll with like Pitt or Miller for another year, grab some Ladarius Green. He'll break out eventually.
Yeah, when he's 37 years old and Gates has long since retired.
Exactly.
Ladarius Green's coming.
He's going to put up a Hall of Fame year in that age 37 year. He's still going to be on my roster.
That's great.
All right.
Another question. We got another submitted question here. All right. From Prowler Baseball, which we hate baseball, by the way, because we're in Dynasty FF. He has a question of value of aging and or injury-prone running backs. Examples, Foster, Charles, and Lynch. Tyler, let's hear what you have to say about these old farts at running back.
Yeah, so I don't really group Jamal Charles in with these 2 guys, but 18 months, 2 years from now, I think he's right there. Arian, I've been saying it all along. Arian Foster, if he's on your roster right now, he's the kind of guy that's probably going to retire there. Because much like Megatron, if he's on my roster, it's because I'm trying to win. And if you were ever going to get proper value for Megatron, you're not even going to get close to it for Arian Foster. What he's worth and what you'll get are 2 totally different things. Lynch, I can't even say because I've never owned Marshawn Lynch in any format whatsoever. So I don't know. Like I said, Charles is still a top, 3, 4 dynasty running back. So, I mean, he could bring you a nice haul. He's got some value for sure, but he's in a totally different level than these other 2 guys, in my opinion.
Yep, I completely agree. If you want them, you're going to have to pay way too much to get either of them. Look at Foster and look at when he started producing at the start of the 2014 season, it would have cost you a high first and some change to go pick him up for a running back that probably has another year left to produce. That's insanity. But if you're selling him, you don't want to take less than a high first because he's producing for you. So, like you said, Tyler, he's probably retiring on your roster. Lynch, for some reason, continues to go high in startups. His ADP continues to be high. But we don't even know if he's going to play in 2015. So, to me, his value is... I just... No, I don't... I'm not buying him. Like, I don't know what to do with them. Like, obviously I don't own him anywhere because he'd be getting in the way of all my Kristen Michael shares. But I just, with Foster, with Lynch, if you're selling them, you're 2 years late to the show. If you've got them, you're riding them to the end. With Charles, you've still got time to sell Charles. Granted, a better time would have been probably at the beginning of last year, but you still got time right now. He's lost some value, but you've still got plenty of time to get pretty good value for him. But at the same time, he's still producing at a very high level. If you're competing and you don't want to take the 105 for him because that's might be what you get for him, you might not even get that if you're in a savvy league, then you might just want to ride him out because he's going to produce for a couple more years. I keep saying before I explain something, so you obviously don't know. I need to work on this whole talking thing. Charles has a very interesting style where he's going to last a little bit longer. He's probably got another 3 years left as a solid starter. So hold on to him. Unless you want to sell him for the 105 because you're rebuilding. If you're competing, keep Charles.
Yeah, I think a more prudent move if you own these guys, and Foster's one that stands out because you can go get Alfred Blue for almost nothing. And I'm big on grouping my running backs. I want entire backfields. Not necessarily because I believe in the talent or the situation or what have you. I just want guaranteed production for several years. So, go pay a little bitty bit for Alfred Blue because you ain't going to have to pay much for him. For Charles, you're going to have to pay more for Nile Davis. And for Lynch, God knows what you have to pay for Christine Michael. It depends on what week it is. 1 week you might have to pay Julio Jones, and the next week you could have him for a 4th rounder. So, my God, who knows? Go get Turbin. Knock on some doors, see what you can get. But, yeah, like I said, the whole deal with me, and I own Arian in a lot of places, and they're all win-now teams. 0% chance I'm selling him. Just none.
I'd have to, unfortunately, once again, feel like I don't have my own thoughts anymore. You guys take all my thoughts. I'm gonna agree. These guys are old. I don't want them unless I am trying to win yesterday. So these guys are already on my roster. I'm probably screwed and sticking with them. If they're not, I'm probably not going to go after them. If I am going after them, I'm not giving up a first-round pick for a player like Lynch right now. Not even a first-round rookie pick. I'm sorry, but Lynch is like, wow. I can talk. Hold on. Okay. Like Drew was saying earlier, Lynch is a player that we're not even sure if he's going to come back next season. So, I mean, as the player is questionable, the future is that I'm not paying a first-round pick who I could have for at least 4 years on the same team. I know that he's going to be playing for them. I know he's going to be working with them. I know that he's going to be developing. Even if he's not producing, at least I have more of a chance with that player. I think Foster is in a similar situation, although he's not going to be as questionable as where he's going to be next year. He just doesn't have the endurance anymore for a full 16-game season. I mean, he doesn't look the same or even close to the same player week 1 and week 16, or week 17, I guess, technically. So the aging running backs are really hard to give yourself a reason to go after, to justify going after. It's in that position where you know they're not going to have a lot of life left, so you're not buying them for the long term. You know that you're probably overpaying to get them, so that's not good for the short term. So I mean, there's no real obvious way you're winning by trying to buy these running backs. Selling them, at least you're getting something, I guess. Say you just got out of your range of when you think that you had that window open to get all your championships, and you own all the old guys we've talked about today, from Heath Miller to Calvin Johnson to Marshawn Lynch. That's your top 3 guys, then yeah, I mean, get rid of those old guys and try and start thinking about 4 years from now. But I don't see a good reason to go out there and buy these aging running backs. So if anything, I wouldn't tell you any value. I'd tell you just don't do it. But I also wouldn't put Charles in that group with Foster and Lynch.
Yeah, I mean, one last thing to note on Lynch and Foster is these guys both have had massive amounts of carries on their body. Foster and Lynch have both had multiple 300 carry seasons. The fact that Lynch hasn't spent any time on injured reserve is a borderline miracle, and the fact that Foster's is still playing at all is fairly shocking. If you're expecting these guys to continue to produce and stay on the field, it's kind of a pipe dream. Look, if you look at running backs who have amounted these number of carries, they don't normally stay that healthy, especially as they get older. Tyler, you have anything else you want to throw on?
No, not at all. I do like what Scott said about the difference between Arian in Week 1 and Week 17, because, man, Arian looked good early in the season. It was the king of cuts, and it just got a little worse, and then he misses a week, and then he comes back as a decoy, and then he blows up again. And that's just what he's going to do. But when he's in your lineup, he's a potential difference maker. But, yeah.
Yeah. I think that'll cover it for all our submitted questions of the week. Thanks, everybody, for submitting questions. It gives us something to talk about every week, and it lets us kind of vary up what we talk about every week. So for all of your submitted questions, or those of you who have submitted questions in the past, please keep them coming. Keep them interesting. No more 100 gigawatt questions. So we did one. That's enough. And now we're going to move on to my rant of the week. And this one's got some anger behind it, because I dealt with some dumb people this week. All right, people. Now, I know you're all in Dynasty League, so this applies to everybody. Look at your trade partners' teams, like all the players on them, before you offer them a trade. If your trade partner already has Matt Ryan, don't offer them Drew Brees for their backup quarterback. Guess what? They don't want Drew Brees. Don't waste their time. Don't act like they're the idiot because they rejected the trade. Pay a little bit of attention when you send your offer. It's going to waste less of your time. It's going to waste less of their time. It's going to form better trade relationships, and you're going to get more trades done. But instead, you're going to have one person in your league who thinks you're an idiot. And actually, if you're doing that to one person, chances are you're probably doing that to everybody, so your entire league's going to think you're an idiot. I know, because I'm in leagues with idiots. Stupid idiots. And I don't want Johnny Manziel. I don't.
I hope whoever you're directing that no Johnny Manziel to is watching this.
I am not thinking that he is. But I might go post this in that message board just so he knows. That might be considered inflammatory. Or I might be considered an asshole.
Well, we all already know you're an asshole. Thought we joined anyways, knowing that. It's like, it's in the bylaws, right underneath, like, payment section. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, Drew's an asshole.
Right, but I didn't start this league, so I'm not in their bylaws.
Ah, I see the issue now.
Right, I made it in under the radar.
Bad news.
I don't want to blow my cover.
People still think you're all right.
Because I don't talk a whole lot there yet. But, so guys, do you have any last parting shots for us this week?
Nope.
None for me. Good week. And like Drew said, keep the questions coming. We really, really appreciate it. That way we don't have to think. Don't make us come up with content on our own. Submit the questions. Stay active on the sub. All three of us are there. Keep them coming.
Also, everybody sell Julius Thomas. He's a jerk. I don't like him anymore. Get rid of him.
Scott's just mad because Julius Thomas is leaving Denver. And I agree, sell Julius Thomas, but that's mostly because his stats are inflated by touchdowns, and he doesn't know how to run for 1,000 yards in a season. I'm just saying. For all you listening, the podcast is available on iTunes and on Stitcher. If you like the podcast, please give us a rating on there. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, where we can improve, where we suck. Let us know who's ugly, who you think that Drew is attractive, whatever. But just let us know how you think we're doing. We'd like to improve the show for you and just make it better. We're, well on our way to 20 episodes. We've come a long way. We've come a long way from terrible episodes. I just listened to our first episode a couple days ago, and it was god-awful. So we're trying to continue to improve. But your feedback helps us improve quicker. If there's, segments on the show you'd like us to do in the future, let us know. We're open to moving around, doing some interesting stuff. But once again, thanks you guys for listening. Thanks for submitting content. This has been the Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty FS dedicated podcast. I'm your host, Drew. You can find me on Reddit at EAF_Marine and on Twitter at DrewDotsNFL. With me have been my excellent co-hosts, Scott and Tyler. You can find Scott on Reddit at Stewie35 and Tyler on Reddit at Barles. Thanks, and have a great day.